The whole city was waiting for midnight, but I was waiting for the courage to admit I had nowhere to go. At 11:41 p.m. on New Year's Eve, Harbor Light Diner looked like the last forgotten place in Manhattan. Snow pressed softly against the front windows, turning the neon sign outside into a red and blue blur. The TV above the counter showed Times Square packed shoulder to shoulder with people in paper hats, silver coats, bright scarves, faces tilted up toward a year they still believed would be kinder than the last. They were laughing, kissing, holding plastic cups of champagne like the future owed them something beautiful. I stood under a flickering fluorescent light with a mop in one hand and a rent notice folded inside the pocket of my apron. My name was Emily Carter. I was 24 years old, and I had worked 14 hours that day because Ryan said holidays were for people who could afford them. Ryan Miller owned nothing, not even the diner, but he managed the place like Cruelty was a promotion. He had sent the other waitresses home before 10, told the cook not to worry about closing, then looked at me and smiled like he had done me a favor. "You need the hours, don't you, Em?" he had said. I hated when he called me that. "Em soldad soft." Small. Like something that could be folded and put away. I needed the hours. That was the worst part. I needed every dollar from every table, every quarter left under coffee cups, every wrinkled five someone pushed beside a plate of cold fries. My mother's hospital bills had outlived her by 8 months. My landlord had stopped saying he understood. And the little room I rented in Queens had a radiator that coughed more than it heated. So I said yes. I always said yes. The diner smelled like burnt coffee, lemon cleaner, and old grease trapped in the walls. I wiped the same table 3 times because stopping meant thinking, and thinking meant looking at the clock. 19 minutes until midnight. 19 minutes until everyone outside got a fresh start. I had a trash bag leaking onto my sneakers and a manager who had locked himself in the back office to count money he would later claim came up short. My phone buzzed. Once on the counter. I looked even though I knew better. No message. Just an alert from a delivery app wishing me a happy new year. I almost laughed. Instead, I folded the rent notice smaller in my pocket until the paper cut into my palm. Outside, a couple ran past the window beneath one umbrella, stumbling and laughing, their cheeks red from the cold. The woman stopped to kiss the man under the streetlight. For 1 second, I watched them like they belonged to another species. People who were wanted. People who were expected somewhere. People who would be missed if they disappeared before morning. I looked away first. The mop bucket wheels squeaked as I dragged it toward the front door. Ryan had told me to lock up early, then clean from the inside so no one wandered in after last call. I turned the deadbolt, pulled the blinds halfway down, and caught my reflection in the glass. Pale skin. Tired blue eyes. Brown hair twisted into a bun that had given up hours ago. A coffee stain near my collar. Hands red from sanitizer and cold water. I looked like a girl trying to survive a life that kept asking for more proof. From the back office, Ryan shouted, "Don't forget the storage room after the floor. And don't touch the tip jar until I check it." I closed my eyes, counted to 3. Not because it calmed me, because it kept me from answering. "Yes," I called back. My voice sounded polite. My throat burned with everything polite women swallow. Then headlights washed over the windows. Slow. Dark. Too expensive for our block. I froze with one hand still on the mop handle. A black car eased to the curb outside the diner, long and polished, its surface catching the snow like ash on glass. It didn't belong beside our cracked sidewalk and faded awning. It belonged outside a penthouse, a courthouse, a place where men made decisions other people paid for. The engine went quiet. For a moment nothing moved. Even the TV seemed lower. The crowd in Times Square counting down to a future that suddenly felt very far away. Then the rear door opened, and a man stepped out into the snow wearing a black overcoat like the cold had asked his permission to touch him. The first thing I noticed was not his face. It was the silence that followed him. New York did not go silent, not on New Year's Eve, not with sirens somewhere downtown and laughter rolling down the avenue and the television crowd chanting through tinny diner speakers. But when that man stepped out of the black car, the night seemed to draw in one careful breath and hold it. He was tall, maybe 6 feet 2 inches, with dark hair combed back from a face that looked carved instead of born. Snow landed on the shoulders of his overcoat and melted there without making him hurry. Two men stood near the car behind him, both in dark suits, both still as street signs, their eyes moving over the block like they were memorizing every door, every camera, every shadow. I should have stayed away from the entrance. The sign on the door already said closed. The deadbolt was turned. Harbor Light Diner was done for the night, at least to anyone with normal expectations. But he looked through the half-lowered blinds and met my eyes as if locked doors were only suggestions made for other people. I gripped the mop handle harder. My fingers were still damp from the cleaning bucket. My first thought was that he wanted directions. My second was that men like him never needed directions because the world usually moved out of their way. He lifted one hand, not knocking, not waving, just resting two fingers against the glass. Somehow that felt more commanding than pounding ever could. From the back office, Ryan shouted, "Tell whoever that is we are closed." I did not answer him. My feet moved before my courage caught up. I unlocked the door only 3 inches, keeping the chain in place. Cold air slipped through the gap and touched my face. "We are closed," I said, because that was the sentence safe women used when they wanted to sound firm without sounding rude. The man looked down at the chain, then back at me. His eyes were gray, not soft gray like rain, but the color of winter steel under streetlights. "One coffee," he said. His voice was low, calm, American, but edged with something I could not place, maybe the kind of careful pronunciation that came from old family rules in private schools and rooms, where people lowered their voices when money entered. I already cleaned the machine. That was a lie. The coffee had been burning in the pot for 40 minutes. His gaze shifted past me to the empty booths, the wet floor sign, the clock above the pie case. 11:46. Then pour what is left. I should have closed the door. I should have said no. But the two men by the car had not moved, and something about the way this stranger stood there told me he was not asking because he needed caffeine. He was asking because he had noticed something. The locked door. The empty diner. Me. Alone. I slid the chain free and stepped back. He entered without brushing against me, leaving enough space to make it clear he understood exactly where my boundaries were. That surprised me more than the car. More than the coat. More than the quiet authority that followed him inside. The diner lights made him look even more unreal. Expensive watch. Black leather gloves. White shirt collar sharp beneath the dark wool. No wedding ring. No smile. He removed one glove finger by finger and placed it on the counter with controlled precision. "Black," he said. I moved behind the counter and reached for the pot. My hand shook. Not badly. Not enough for most people to notice. He noticed. His eyes dropped to the coffee rippling against the glass as I poured. "Sugar?" I asked. "No, of course not." Men like him did not seem built for sweet things. I set the mug in front of him. He did not drink. He looked at the rim, then at the security camera in the corner above the register. The little red light had been dead for weeks. His gaze moved to the back hallway, then to the office door where Ryan's shadow passed beneath the frame. "You are closing alone," he said. Not a question. I picked up a rag and wiped a clean spot on the counter because my hands needed somewhere to put the nervousness. It is a small place. Small places can still be dangerous. The words were quiet, but they landed heavily. I forced a smile. "Only if you count the meatloaf." He did not smile back. That should have embarrassed me, but instead it made my heartbeat stumble. He reached for the mug then, but before he lifted it, his attention fixed on my wrist. My sleeve had slipped when I stretched for the counter. A red mark circled the skin where Ryan had grabbed me earlier. Not hard enough to leave a bruise yet, but hard enough to remind me who controlled the schedule, the tips, the reference I needed for my next job. I tugged the sleeve down fast. Too fast. The man saw that too. "Who is in the back?" he asked. "My manager." "And where is everyone else?" "Home. It is New Year's Eve." His eyes held mine. "Exactly." The television crowd roared behind us as the camera cut to the glowing ball above Times Square. 14 minutes until midnight. 14 minutes until strangers kissed and confetti covered the streets like proof that people could begin again. The man finally lifted the coffee, took one sip, and set it down with a soft ceramic click. "You are not supposed to be here alone," he said. Men like him made simple sentences sound like warnings. "You are not supposed to be here alone." I heard it after he said it, echoing beneath the hum of the refrigerator cases and the distant roar from Times Square on the television. I wanted to tell him that women like me were always somewhere alone. Alone on late subway platforms. Alone in laundromats with broken lights. Alone in apartment hallways pretending not to hear footsteps behind us. Alone at work because saying no cost more than we could pay. Instead, I gave him the lie I had practiced until it sounded almost true. I am fine. His gray eyes stayed on me. That is not what I said. Heat climbed into my cheeks not because he was cruel but because he was precise. Most people accepted fine because it was easier than caring. He did not look like a man interested in easy things. I folded the rag once, then twice, then again, making a square so tight my fingers hurt. It is just a shift. I need the money. Need is not the same as choice. The words were calm, but something behind them felt sharp enough to cut through every excuse I had spent years building. I looked toward the office door. Ryan was still inside, the cheap blinds over the small window glowing yellow from the desk lamp. I could hear drawers opening, coins, clinking, paper sliding. He was counting the night deposit and pretending half my tips belonged to the house. Look, I said quietly, leaning closer so my voice would not carry. I appreciate the concern, but I really cannot have trouble tonight. Who said I was trouble? I almost smiled before I stopped myself. The two men outside the window stood beside the black car like they had been placed there by a threat instead of a valet. You did not have to. For the first time something changed in his face. Not a smile. Not even close. But the corner of his mouth moved as if he respected the answer. What is your name? He asked. Every instinct told me not to give it. Every customer who asked too softly had taught me that names could become hooks. But Ryan kept employee schedules taped near the register, and my name was printed in black marker beside the worst hours of the week. There was no real hiding. Emily. Emily Carter? My stomach tightened. How do you know my last name? He did not look toward the schedule. He did not have to. It is on your apron tag. I looked down. There it was, a little plastic badge with my full name, scratched at the edges, pinned crooked over my heart. I hated that too. I hated how the world kept labeling me for people who had not earned the right to know me. And you are? I asked because fear sometimes makes manners sound braver than they are. He held my gaze for a beat too long. Adrian Blake. The name meant nothing to me at first. Then it meant something in the way the air changed around it. I had heard it from customers who lowered their voices over coffee at 2 in the morning. From delivery drivers who joked until one of them said Blake territory and everyone stopped laughing. From Ryan once when a black envelope arrived at the diner and he turned pale enough to look sick. Adrian Blake. The kind of man people did not describe directly. They described what happened after he left. I stepped back so quickly my hip hit the counter. The coffee pot rattled on its burner. He noticed. Of course he did. You know my name. I have heard it. Then you know I do not hurt waitresses. There was no pride in the sentence. No performance. Just a line drawn in stone. Before I could answer, the office door opened hard enough to bump the wall. Ryan stepped out with his sleeves rolled up and his tie loose, holding the tip jar in one hand. His face changed when he saw Adrian at the counter. Not recognition at first. Annoyance. Then calculation. Then the slow, ugly confidence of a small man who had not yet realized he was standing in deep water. I said we are closed, Ryan snapped, looking at me instead of him. Emily, why is there someone inside? He wanted coffee. And you just let him in? Ryan walked closer, his shoes sticking slightly on the damp floor I had not finished mopping. Do you understand basic instructions? Or is that also too hard for you? My face went hot. The words were not new. That was why they hurt. New cruelty shocks you. Familiar cruelty finds the old bruises inside your chest and presses. I lowered my eyes by habit. I am sorry. Adrian set his mug down. The sound was soft, but Ryan stopped talking for half a second. She made coffee, Adrian said. Not a mistake worth humiliating her over. Ryan blinked then laughed once. This is employee business. No, Adrian said. This is character. The diner went still again. Even the refrigerator seemed to hum more quietly. Ryan looked at him then, really looked, and whatever color had been in his face drained away in pieces. Mr. Blake, he said, and my breath caught at how fast his voice changed. Smaller. Thinner. Polite in the way fear teaches. Adrian did not answer him. His eyes moved from Ryan's hand on the tip jar to the red mark on my wrist, then back to Ryan's face. I pulled my sleeve down, but it was too late. The truth had already crossed the room. Is he the reason your hands are shaking? Adrian asked. Adrian's question sat between us like a lit match. Is he the reason your hands are shaking? I could feel Ryan staring at me, not with fear now but with warning. The kind of warning that did not need words because I had heard all of them before. Do not make this worse. Do not embarrass me. Do not forget who signs your time card. My throat tightened around the truth until it became impossible to say. No, I whispered. I am just tired. Ryan smiled too quickly. See? She is tired. Long shift. Gets emotional. You know how it is. Adrian did not look at him. That was somehow worse. He kept looking at me like my lie was not an insult, just a locked door he had no intention of forcing open. Tired does not leave marks, he said. My fingers curled against my apron. The rent notice crackled in my pocket. Midnight was 12 minutes away, and all I could think was that if I lost this job before the year even ended, January would eat me alive. Ryan stepped closer to the counter, placing the tip jar down with a little clink of coins and folded bills. Mr. Blake, I apologize if she bothered you. Coffee is on the house. We have closing work to finish. His voice had gone smooth and respectful, but his eyes cut toward me. Emily's storage room. Now, I need the inventory counted before you leave. My stomach dropped. The storage room was downstairs past the kitchen, through the narrow stairwell that smelled like bleach and old cardboard. I hated it at night. The bulb flickered. The back door lock stuck. And Ryan liked sending me there when he wanted to remind me that nobody could hear me from the street. Adrian finally turned his head toward Ryan. It is almost midnight. Ryan gave a tight laugh. Food service does not stop for holidays. Neither does decency. Ryan's smile twitched. For a second I thought he might argue. Then he looked past Adrian to the two men visible through the blinds outside and swallowed whatever sentence had formed in his mouth. Just inventory, Ryan said. 5 minutes. I wanted Adrian to stop me. Then I hated myself for wanting it. Women like me did not survive by waiting for dangerous men to turn kind. We survived by moving carefully, speaking softly, getting through one more door, one more shift, one more night. I picked up the clipboard from beside the register. It is fine, I said again, and the words tasted worse each time. Adrian's eyes followed me as I walked past him. He did not touch me, did not command me, did not make the choice for me. But as I reached the kitchen doorway, he said quietly, "Leave the door open." Ryan answered before I could. Health code. Storage stays closed. Adrian set one hand on the counter. Nothing dramatic. No raised voice. Just his palm on Formica, still and controlled. Then I will wait. I did not know why those 4 words made my chest ache. Maybe because no one waited for me. People asked things from me. Took hours from me. Added weight to my hands and bills to my pocket and apologies to my tongue. But waiting meant staying. Waiting meant noticing whether I came back. I went downstairs anyway. The stairwell was colder than the diner, and the air changed as soon as I descended, damp and metallic, threaded with the sour smell of old mop water. Above me, the television crowd began chanting again. 10 minutes until midnight. Their voices blurred through the ceiling like a celebration happening underwater. The storage room light buzzed when I pulled the string. Boxes lined the walls from floor to ceiling. Napkins. Syrup bottles. Paper cups. Cleaning supplies. I opened the clipboard and stared at the inventory sheet without reading it. My hands were not shaking now. They were numb. Then I heard something near the walk-in cooler. A soft scrape. Not a rat. Not pipes. Too careful. I turned slowly. Beside the cooler, half hidden behind stacked soda crates, sat a black duffel bag I had never seen before. It was new. Clean. Expensive. Completely wrong among dusty boxes and dented cans of tomato sauce. My first instinct was to pretend I had not noticed it. That instinct had kept me safe more than once. But the zipper was partly open, and a corner of a manila folder stuck out, stamped with a logo I recognized from city notices taped to our front window. Harbor Light Diner LLC. My breath shortened. I stepped closer, 1 inch at a time, telling myself it was none of my business, telling myself to turn around, telling myself 5 minutes could still be 5 minutes if I did not make it more. Inside were sealed envelopes, stacks of documents, and a second folder full of identification cards with faces I did not recognize. Not fake-looking. That was what scared me. They looked real enough to belong to people who might not know their names were being used. Underneath them was a bank envelope thick with cash. I backed away so fast my shoulder hit the shelf. A bottle of dish soap tipped, bounced once and rolled across the concrete floor. The sound was small. Too small to matter. But upstairs the diner went quiet. Then the storage room door closed. I looked up toward the stairs. The open rectangle of light disappeared into darkness. A lock clicked from the other side. The click of that lock was the quietest sound I had ever been afraid of. I stood in the storage room with the clipboard clutched against my chest, listening to the whole world continue without me. Above the ceiling, the television crowd was shouting about the final minutes of the year. Outside, somewhere beyond the diner walls, people were raising glasses and checking their phones and telling each other they were lucky to be together. I was 6 feet below a greasy kitchen, breathing air that smelled like cardboard, bleach, and panic, staring at a black duffel bag that did not belong to me and a door that would not open. I moved slowly at first because part of me still believed in explanations. Maybe the door had stuck. Maybe the lock had slipped. Maybe Ryan had not seen the bag, had not seen me see it, had not turned the key with the same hand that had held my tips all night. I climbed the 3 concrete steps and pressed my palm against the metal handle. It did not move. I tried again. Harder. The handle rattled in my hand, useless and cold. Ryan. My voice came out too thin. I swallowed and tried again. Ryan, this is not funny. Nothing. No footsteps. No answer. Only the refrigerator motor humming behind me and my own breath coming too fast. I reached for my phone in my apron pocket. My fingers found a pen, 2 quarters, the folded rent notice, and nothing else. My phone was still on the counter upstairs beside the register, where I had left it when the delivery alert wished me a happy new year. I laughed once, but it sounded broken, so I stopped. The duffel bag sat open behind me like a second heartbeat in the room. I did not want to look at it again. Looking made it real. Looking meant I knew. And knowing things had never made women like me safer. I went back down the steps and scanned the walls for another way out. There was a small basement window near the ceiling, sealed with old paint and blocked by a metal grate. Too high. Too narrow. The back service door led into the alley, but it had been bolted from the outside after the last delivery. Ryan always said it was for security. I understood now that security depended on which side of the lock you were standing on. Upstairs something thudded. Not loud. Not dramatic. A chair leg maybe. A door closing. Then Ryan's voice drifted down through the vent, strained and false. She is fine, Mr. Blake. She is just finishing inventory. My heart stopped trying to escape my ribs and froze instead. Adrian was still there. He had waited. I stepped beneath the vent, but my voice would not come. Fear can be loud inside you and silent in your mouth. I pressed my hands together, the way my mother used to do when she prayed over hospital bills at the kitchen table. Say something, Emily. Say anything. But if Ryan heard me first, if he came down angry, if this became my fault the way everything somehow became my fault, then what? Another voice came through the ceiling. Lower. Calm enough to make every other sound seem nervous. Then she can tell me herself. Ryan said something I could not catch. The floorboards creaked above me. 1 step. Then another. Slow. Measured. I imagined Adrian standing near the basement door, gray eyes on Ryan, reading the shape of the lie before it finished leaving his mouth. The diner had gone too quiet. Even the celebration on the television seemed far away now, muffled beneath a tension that moved through the building like cold water. I looked around for something, anything, and saw the fallen bottle of dish soap near my foot. Beside it, the clipboard. I grabbed the pen clipped to the top and hit the pipe running along the wall. Once. Then again. A small metallic ping answered me. Not enough. I hit harder. Ping. 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 3 quick strikes. A pause. 3 more. My hand shook so badly the pen slipped and clattered onto the concrete. Above me, silence. Then Adrian's voice, no longer distant. Open the door. Ryan laughed, but it cracked in the middle. There is no need for that. Open it. No shouting. No threat I could repeat later. Just 2 words carrying the weight of a man who was used to being obeyed. The lock turned. Light spilled down the stairs in a narrow golden strip, and I saw Ryan first, pale and sweating, one hand still on the knob. Behind him stood Adrian Blake, his black overcoat open now, his face unreadable, his eyes finding mine before they found the bag, before they found the folders, before they found anything else. For one strange second he did not look like the most dangerous man in the room. He looked like the only one who had noticed I was missing. Emily, he said, and my name sounded steadier in his mouth than it had ever felt in my own. I stepped toward the stairs, but Ryan moved as if to block me, still pretending this was a misunderstanding he could manage. Adrian did not touch him. He did not need to. One glance made Ryan step aside. I climbed slowly, one hand on the wall, my legs unsure beneath me. When I reached the top, the countdown on the television hit 60 seconds. The whole city began to roar. Adrian looked at Ryan, then at the locked basement door, then back at me. Did he put you down there? He asked. I looked at Ryan. I looked at the tip jar on the counter. I looked at the rent notice sticking out of my pocket, and for the first time that night, I stopped protecting the person who had never protected me. Yes, I whispered. Ryan's face folded in panic. Mr. Blake, I did not know she was with you. Adrian's expression went colder than the snow against the windows. She was not, he said. That is why you thought you could scare her. The last minute of the year began with Ryan losing his voice. He opened his mouth, closed it, then looked toward the front windows where Adrian's men stood outside in the falling snow, still as statues beneath the neon glow. On the television, thousands of strangers screamed beneath the bright ball in Times Square. 59. 58. 57. Their joy filled the diner in bursts of sound, wrong and distant, like a party happening on the other side of glass. I stood near the basement door with my hands pressed together so tightly my knuckles ached. Part of me still expected Ryan to explain everything away. He had always been good at that. Missing tips became accounting mistakes. Extra hours became teamwork. Cruel words became jokes I was too sensitive to understand. But the black duffel bag was downstairs. The folders were real. The lock had turned, and Adrian Blake was looking at him like excuses were a language he had decided not to speak. Sit, Adrian said. Ryan blinked. What? At the counter. Ryan moved because the room told him to. Not Adrian's volume. Not a threat. The room itself had changed ownership. The diner with cracked vinyl booths and ketchup bottles and half-burned coffee suddenly felt like a courtroom with no judge visible. Only consequences waiting in the walls. Ryan sat on the stool farthest from me. His knee bounced beneath the counter. Adrian removed his phone from his coat pocket and placed it in front of him. Unlock it. Ryan laughed weakly. Mr. Blake, I really think there has been a misunderstanding. Adrian glanced at me. Not for permission exactly. For truth. I did not know why that mattered, but it did. He looked back at Ryan. Then clarify it. The countdown kept falling. 46. 45. 44. Ryan's hand trembled as he unlocked his phone. Adrian did not take it. He nodded toward the screen. Call whoever owns that bag. Ryan went still. The red numbers on the clock above the pie case blinked 11:59. I could hear my own breathing now, shallow and uneven. I wanted to disappear behind the coffee machine. I wanted to run out into the snow and keep running until the city lights blurred. But I stayed. Because for once the truth was not being dragged out of me. It was being dragged into the open without asking me to bleed for it. I cannot, Ryan whispered. You can. You do not understand. Adrian's face did not change. I understand that you locked a woman in a basement because she saw something she was not meant to see. Ryan looked at me then, and there it was again, that old automatic blame, as if my eyes had caused his secrets. She should not have been snooping. The words landed, and something inside me went very quiet. I had spent months shrinking around him, trimming my voice down, making myself convenient so I could keep a paycheck. But there was a difference between surviving and surrendering. I did not know that until that moment. You sent me downstairs, I said. My voice was soft, but it did not shake. Ryan stared like he had forgotten I could speak. Adrian's eyes did not leave my face. The television crowd shouted louder. 30, 29, 28. Adrian turned the phone on the counter so the camera faced Ryan. Say it clearly. Ryan's face shone with sweat. Say what? That the bag is yours. That the documents are yours. That you locked her downstairs because she found them. Ryan shook his head so fast it almost looked painful. No. No, I cannot do that. Adrian leaned one elbow on the counter, close enough to be heard over the television, calm enough to make the fear in Ryan look childish. Then the evidence goes to people who will ask less politely. That was all. No raised hand. No ugly details. No spectacle. Just a choice placed on the counter beside the cold coffee and the stolen tips. Ryan looked at the phone. Then at me. Then at Adrian. Outside, fireworks began early somewhere over the river, soft flashes of white behind the snowy windows. 15, 14, 13. Ryan started talking. The first word stumbled out broken and thin. Then more followed. Names I did not know. Dates. Deliveries after closing. Envelopes hidden beneath cleaning supplies. I listened as the man who had made me feel small all night became smaller with every truth he gave away. 10, 9, 8. Adrian's phone recorded it all. 7, 6, 5. My eyes burned but I did not cry. 4, 3, 2, 1. Midnight exploded across New York. The television erupted. Confetti filled the screen. People kissed in the cold and screamed promises into the new year. In Harbor Light Diner, Ryan lowered his head and whispered, I am sorry, Emily. The apology should have felt like victory. It did not. It felt like a receipt for pain I had already paid in full. Adrian stopped the recording and slipped the phone into his coat. Then he reached for the tip jar, opened it, and counted the bills with quiet precision. Every dollar Ryan had tried to hold back. Every folded 5. Every single. He placed them in front of me not like a gift, but like something being returned to its rightful owner. This is yours, he said. My hands hovered over the money, afraid to touch it. What happens now? Adrian looked toward the basement door, then toward the front of the diner where snow kept falling over a city pretending everyone got to start over at the same time. Now, he said. He learns the difference between being feared and being accountable. The first thing Adrian did after midnight was not punish Ryan. It was stranger than that. He made him stand. He made him take the tip jar, the payroll folder, and the little notebook he kept hidden beneath the register, and place all of it on the counter in front of me. Ryan's hands moved fast at first, then slower when Adrian said, carefully. That one word carried more control than shouting ever had. Outside, fireworks bloomed behind the clouds, bright white and gold flashing over the snow-covered street. Inside, the diner smelled like cold coffee and lemon cleaner, and a year that had ended badly for the wrong man. I stood near the pie case with my coat clutched in my arms, still wearing my apron, still waiting for someone to tell me what I owed for being helped. That was the habit poverty gave you. Nothing kind ever felt free. Ryan slid the notebook across the counter. I recognized it immediately. Every waitress did. It was where he wrote down late minutes, broken glasses, missing ketchup bottles, and imaginary mistakes that turned into real deductions on our checks. Adrian opened it, flipped through 3 pages and stopped. How many employees did you steal from? Ryan flinched at the word steal. It was not like that. Adrian looked at him. Ryan swallowed. 6. My chest tightened. Maria. June. Old Mrs. Alvarez who worked weekend mornings because her social security check did not stretch far enough. All of us smiling through sore feet while Ryan skimmed little pieces from our lives and called it business. Adrian pushed the notebook toward one of his men, who had entered so quietly I had not heard the bell above the door. Copy everything. Send it where it needs to go. The man nodded and stepped outside with the book. Ryan stared at the door like his future had just walked out of it. Then Adrian looked at me. Do you have somewhere safe to go tonight? I hated that question more than I expected. Not because it was cruel, because it was gentle and gentleness made the walls inside me shake. I have a room in Queens. Is it safe? I almost lied again. Fine. Safe. Okay. The holy trinity of women who did not want to be trouble. But my room had a broken lobby lock, a neighbor who shouted through walls, and a window that did not close all the way. Safe was a big word for a place that only had 4 walls. "It is mine," I said. Adrian seemed to understand the difference. "My driver can take you." There it was. The offer. The black car. The men outside. The strange, impossible feeling of being protected by someone every reasonable person should fear. For one fragile second, I wanted to say yes before he finished speaking. I wanted the door open for me. I wanted the heat in the back seat and the silence of not riding the subway after midnight with my tips hidden in my sock. I wanted someone else to decide what happened next because deciding had exhausted me. But then I saw Ryan watching us. I saw the calculation return in his eyes, faint but alive, as if he had already begun rewriting the story. Poor Emily. Saved by a powerful man. Taken away by him. Owned by the next person with a louder voice. My spine straightened before I understood why. "No," I said. Adrian did not blink. Ryan did. I held the tips tighter in my fist. "Thank you. Truly. But I am not going anywhere because you tell me to." The words surprised all 3 of us. They came out quiet, but they stood upright. Adrian's gray eyes sharpened, not with anger, with attention. "I was offering." "I know." My voice softened, but I did not take the words back. "And I am grateful. But I am not yours." Ryan let out a nervous little breath, almost a laugh, like he had been waiting for Adrian to punish me for forgetting my place. I waited too. My heart climbed into my throat and stayed there. Men like Adrian Blake did not get told no in diners after midnight. Men like him did not have to ask twice. The old fear inside me braced for the shift, for the coldness, for the price of my dignity. But Adrian only looked at me for a long second. Then he nodded once. "No," he said. "You are not." I could not explain what that did to me. It did not feel romantic. It felt bigger than that. Cleaner. Like a window opening in a room where I had forgotten air existed. He turned to Ryan. "Remember that. She belongs to herself." Ryan lowered his eyes. Adrian reached into his coat and took out a set of car keys, placing them on the counter between us. "Then let me be useful, not entitled." I looked at the keys. What is that supposed to mean? It means the car is warm. My driver will stay outside. You can sit in it while you decide whether you want a ride, a cab, or 5 minutes to breathe without someone watching you like prey. His voice stayed even. "Your choice." Choice. The word felt unfamiliar in my hands. I looked through the window at the black car idling beside the curb, snow melting on its hood. I looked at the man who had opened a locked door without turning me into another kind of prisoner. Then I untied my apron, folded it once, and laid it on the counter in front of Ryan. "I quit," I said. My voice shook at the end, but it did not break. Adrian stepped aside, clearing the path to the door. Not leading me. Not claiming me. Just making room. And for the first time that year, I walked out of Harbor Light Diner because I chose to. Snow touched my face the second I stepped outside, soft at first, then sharp where the wind carried it sideways between the buildings. The city was still screaming itself into the new year. Horns. Fireworks. Strangers cheering from apartment windows. Somewhere uptown, people were packed behind barricades, kissing under falling confetti, promising things they might forget by morning. I stood on the cracked sidewalk in front of Harbor Light Diner with a folded stack of tips in my hand and no idea what a new beginning was supposed to feel like. Behind me, the bell above the diner door chimed. Adrian came out without hurry. He had put his gloves back on, and the black overcoat moved around him like the night had learned his shape. One of his men opened the rear door of the car, but Adrian did not get in. He looked at me instead. Not impatient. Not amused. Just present. "You are shaking," he said. I looked down at my hands. He was right. The money trembled between my fingers. "It is cold." That is not the only reason. I wanted to argue, but the truth had taken too much energy from me already. So I stood there under the dirty awning, watching snow collect on the sleeves of my thin thrift store coat. "Why did you stay?" I asked. The question came out before I could make it safer. Adrian's eyes moved past me to the diner windows, where Ryan sat inside with his head lowered and his future no longer fully in his own hands. Because you went downstairs and the room changed. That is not an answer. It is the answer a man like me gives first. I almost smiled. Almost. He noticed that too. The driver stood by the open car door waiting. Heat poured from inside the vehicle in soft waves, carrying the faint smell of leather and clean air. I should have climbed in. My legs ached. My shoes were wet. My room in Queens felt very far away. But there was something I needed more than warmth. No, I said. I want the real answer. Adrian looked at me for a long time. Fireworks flashed silver behind him, lighting his face in pieces. For the first time all night, he seemed less untouchable. Not weaker. Never that. Just older somehow, not in years but in memory. My mother worked nights, he said. The words were simple, but the space around them changed. A corner market in Brooklyn. Cash register. Coffee machine. Lotto tickets. Same kind of place. Bad lights. Bad luck. People coming in after midnight because they knew she would be alone. I did not move. Even my breath felt too loud. New Year's Eve. I asked softly. His jaw tightened barely. Yes. A car passed behind us, tires hissing through slush. He watched it go as if the street had become another street entirely. I was 16. Old enough to think I could protect her. Young enough that everyone still told me to stay out of grown men's business. His voice stayed controlled, but control did not hide the wound. It only gave it sharper edges. That night no one stayed. No one noticed the front light went out. No one cared that she had been scheduled alone because the owner wanted to save money. My chest tightened around his words. I thought of Ryan sending everyone home. The broken camera. The locked basement door. How ordinary selfishness could become danger when nobody challenged it. What happened to her? I asked. Adrian's gaze returned to mine. He did not describe it. He did not need to. The silence told me enough without making me picture what no daughter, no son, no stranger should have to carry. She did not come home the same, he said. And neither did I. The city kept celebrating. That was the cruel thing about pain. It rarely stopped the music for everyone else. I built my life around one rule after that, he continued. No woman works alone in my neighborhood on a holiday, unless someone is watching the door. This is your neighborhood? I asked. He glanced up at the harbor light sign. Tonight it became my concern. I should have been afraid of that sentence. Maybe part of me was. Adrian Blake did not sound like a man who simply made phone calls and filed reports. Power clung to him too easily for that. But he had opened a locked door. He had recorded the truth instead of demanding mine. He had let me say no and made it matter. You do not know me, I said. No, his voice lowered. But I recognized the room. That broke something small inside me. Not enough to make me fall apart. Just enough to let one tear slip before I could stop it. I turned my face away, embarrassed, but Adrian did not reach for me. He did not wipe it away. He gave me the dignity of pretending the snow had done it. After a moment he took a plain black card from inside his coat and placed it on the hood of the car between us. No logo. No title. Only a phone number. Printed in silver. For a cab. A locksmith. A lawyer. A job where the cameras work. Whatever you choose. I stared at the card. And what do you get? He looked at the diner again, then back at me. One less woman left alone because everyone else had somewhere better to be. The fireworks faded to smoke over the rooftops. The new year settled around us, quiet beneath the noise. For the first time that night, I believed morning might still come for me. By 7:15 that morning, the snow had stopped, and New York looked softer than it deserved to. The streets were quiet in the strange way they only become after a night when everyone has asked too much from them. Confetti clung to puddles near the curb. Empty plastic glasses rolled against storm drains. A silver balloon shaped like a star floated low above a bus stop, caught on a street sign, trembling in the pale January light. I had not slept. Adrian's driver had taken me home after I chose the ride. After I sat in the warm backseat for 5 full minutes deciding whether accepting help made me weak. It did not. That was the first lesson of the new year. Help did not become a cage just because the wrong people had once used kindness as a leash. My room in Queens was cold when I unlocked it, but it was mine. I took off my wet shoes, counted my return tips twice, and placed Adrian's black card on the windowsill beside my mother's old coffee mug. Then I sat on the edge of my bed until dawn, listening to the radiator cough and the city wake up around me. At 6:42 my phone rang. I almost did not answer because fear still lived in my thumb, hovering over every unknown number. But something in me had changed shape overnight. Not healed. Not brave exactly. Just tired of letting fear answer first. "Emily Carter?" a woman asked. Her voice was professional, clipped, awake in a way no one should be on New Year's morning. She said she was with the city investigator's office. She said they had received documentation related to Harbor Light Diner. Payroll records, business filings, inventory irregularities, a recorded statement. She asked if I would be willing to confirm my employment history and missing wages. Willing. That word nearly made me cry. Not forced. Not pressured. Willing. I said yes. My voice was rough, but it was mine. By noon, Maria called me sobbing because someone from a legal aid office had contacted her about unpaid deductions. By 2, Mrs. Alvarez left a voicemail saying Ryan had been removed from the schedule pending investigation. By sunset, a notice appeared on the diner door stating that Harbor Light would be closed temporarily for management review. I stood across the street and read it with my hands in my coat pockets. The windows were dark. The neon sign was off. For months that place had felt bigger than me. Like a small kingdom built from bad coffee, cheap fear, and women too tired to fight over missing dollars. Now it looked like what it had always been. A diner. Brick. Glass. A broken camera in the corner. Nothing holy. Nothing stronger than the truth once someone finally carried it into the light. Adrian was waiting beside the curb when I turned around. No entourage this time. No open car door. Just him in a black coat, standing under a street lamp as if the city had placed him there to test whether I would run or stay. I did neither. I crossed the sidewalk slowly. "Did you do all this?" I asked. He looked at the notice, then at me. "Ryan did it. I only made sure the right people knew where to look." That sounds like something powerful men say when they want credit without confession. This time he almost smiled. "You are learning." "No," I said. "I am remembering." His eyes softened in a way that vanished almost before I could trust it. He reached into his coat and took out a white envelope. I did not touch it. He noticed. Of course he did. "It is not money," he said. "It is an interview." I stared at him. For what? A receptionist position at a medical office in Midtown. Day shifts. Working cameras. 2 women owners. They know your name because I gave them your number, not your story. My throat tightened. "You had no right." "I know." He held the envelope lower, not pushing it toward me. "That is why it is only an option." I looked at the envelope for a long time. Then I took it because choice felt different when. No one punished me for hesitating. "Why are you still here?" I asked. Adrian glanced toward the gray sky, where the last smoke of last night's fireworks had disappeared. "Because some doors should stay watched until morning." I thought of his mother. I thought of mine. I thought of all the women who worked under bad lights while the world celebrated somewhere else. Then I slipped the envelope into my coat and held the black card tighter in my pocket. I did not know what Adrian Blake would become in my life. A warning. A friend. A shadow at the edge of a story I had not finished living. But I knew this. He had not saved me because I was helpless. He had simply been the first person that night who understood that being alone should never mean being available for harm. And when I walked toward the subway under the clean morning sky, the new year finally felt less like a countdown and more like a door opening.